Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Well, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the former director of the All-domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW, is back in the news, this time in the Wall Street Journal, with a bunch of more lies, basically. As we all know, Kirkpatrick is a huge liar when it comes to the issue of UFOs and the federal government. He's been issuing lies on this ever since he came on the scene, basically. He was caught in a big lie a year ago, and we'll get into that later with regards to whether or not he ever met Brandon Fugel, the billionaire owner of Skinwalker Ranch, or whether he was ever briefed on anything that was occurring on Skinwalker Ranch. He said he wasn't, and then later on we learned that that was a lie, that he did know all about it. And now he posted just recently over the weekend here, the Wall Street Journal posted this article that basically states that UFO encounters, largely over the decades, the UFO sightings, all of it has been the product of secret tests and other military officials were never told about them. Basically, they were testing our own kind of aircraft, and other military officials were fooled into thinking that these could be aliens from other worlds. It's totally total nonsense, and not only that, it's actually this is the opposite of what he stated before. And we'll get into all of this. It's just incredible lying by someone who worked in ARROW again, and I don't understand why this guy is looked upon by people like the Wall Street Journal. They don't even, there's no other people that they talk to here. They just write this article, take his word for gospel. Don't try to seek any other comments from anyone else. Obviously, this is an effort by the Pentagon to put out more disinformation into the public sphere here, in an effort to just confuse people into thinking, see, it's explained again. It was ours all the time, that we just couldn't say anything about it. That's all it was. That's nonsense. It doesn't explain away this. You can't explain away this phenomenon this way. I mean, what about all of the people who have had encounters with the creatures themselves? I mean, it's just absurd on so many different levels, and we'll get into all of it here. Anyway, let's start off with the Wall Street Journal article itself. By the way, someone posted this onto Reddit, the entire article, because you'll find that if you're not paying for the Wall Street Journal, which I will not do, then you're not going to be able to read it, most likely, unless you know a different way to get beyond the paywall. But I didn't. But fortunately, someone else posted the article onto Reddit, so we'll just look at that version here. And the headline for that article was "The Pentagon Disinformation That Fueled America's UFO Mythology." And it starts off like this. It says, a tiny Pentagon office had spent months investigating conspiracy theories about secret Washington UFO programs when it uncovered a shocking truth. At least one of those theories had been fueled by the Pentagon itself. The congressionally ordered probe took investigators back to the 1980s when an Air Force colonel visited a bar near Area 51, a top-secret site in the Nevada desert. He gave the owner photos of what might be flying saucers. The photos went up on the walls, and into the local lore went the idea that the United States military was secretly testing recovered alien technology. Now, again, let me just stop there. These people, the reporters who are responsible for this article, they did not do their homework whatsoever. They don't know what they're talking about. They're just, I think they had AI help them with this article. They must have had it at system and gave them just some vague concepts with regards to this phenomenon, and they just ran with it. They don't have no idea. Obviously, these people did not, they've never investigated this subject. All they did was put a fluff piece together and basically a fluff piece that was surrounded by BS from Sean Kirkpatrick. That's basically what they did here. It goes on here. It says, but the colonel was on a mission of disinformation. The photos were doctored, the now retired officer confessed to the Pentagon investigators in 2023. The whole exercise was a ruse to protect what was really going on at Area 51. The Air Force was using the site to develop top-secret stealth fighters viewed as a critical edge against the Soviet Union. Military leaders were worried that the programs might get exposed if locals somehow glimpsed a test flight of, say, the F-117 stealth fighter, an aircraft that truly did look out of this world. Better that they believe it came from Andromeda. So basically, it was an effort to basically propagate these kind of stories that, it must be alien, when in reality is they're testing their top secret stealth aircraft. That's what they're trying to make people believe here. Now, a lot of people in the UFO community understand that some sightings of UFOs are certainly misidentifications, right? Sometimes they could be some of our stealth fighters, and someone might think it's something from another world. I believe that that's true in some cases. I think anybody who's reasonably minded would come to that conclusion, right? However, I know that that's not the case in every single instance. There's just no way. Anyway, the article continues. This episode, reported now for the first time, was just a series of discoveries the Pentagon team made as it investigated decades of claims that Washington was hiding what it knew about extraterrestrial life. That effort culminated in a report released last year by the Defense Department that found allegations of a government cover-up to be baseless. Yeah, remember that bogus report that we talked about that Arrow had released that had Sean Kirkpatrick's fingerprints all over it? Was earlier last year, or earlier in 2024, after Kirkpatrick had already left, but he helped put that report together, but it was all bogus. They tried to provide explanations for different events, like for instance, the Roswell incident. They tried to say, yeah, it was just balloons. They're basically, all they did was regurgitate lies that the United States Air Force had brought forward in the 1990s. So it was just nonsense. There was nothing to back up any of their claims. It was just statements without any proof. That's basically what it was. So anyway, the article continues here. It says, in fact, the Wall Street Journal investigation reveals the report itself amounted to a cover-up, but not in the way the UFO conspiracy industry would have people believe. And let's just be clear. Let's stop here again here. It's saying the Wall Street Journal investigation reveals. They're talking about one guy. They interviewed basically one guy for this article. And if there's anybody else they interviewed, they're not stating their names in it. Just Sean Kirkpatrick. Basically, that's all they're talking about. Anyway, continuing with this. It says the public disclosure left out the truth behind some of the foundational myths about UFOs. The Pentagon itself sometimes deliberately fanned the flames in what amounted to the United States government targeting its own citizens with disinformation. So basically, again, this is a similar, in a way, what's been happening here with some of the stuff that Kirkpatrick has been saying over the last couple of years. It's very similar to what the Air Force did in the 1990s, right? They come out in 1994, 95, somewhere around there, and they have this report saying, oh, yeah, it wasn't just balloons that people saw, weather balloons that people saw in Roswell in 1947. They were top secret weather balloons, part of a program called Mogul that was used to spy on the Soviet Union. That's why we couldn't tell you. And that wasn't satisfactory because it didn't cover the rest of the things that people saw in 1947, including the alien bodies. So what did they do? A couple of years later, in 1997, they issue another report called the Roswell Report Case Closed, where they state that, oh yeah, the bodies that people saw were these anthropomorphic dummies that we dropped from high altitudes for this other test, Operation Skydive, that happened from 1953 till 1959 in other parts of the world, in other parts of the country, by the way, not even in the New Mexico area where the crash occurred, the object was, or the UFO was found, not in that area. It was other parts of the world, and years later, and the people just got the years mixed up because everyone's stupid. Everybody who believes that an alien craft crashed in Roswell and people saw alien bodies, you'd be stupid to believe that, because all those people who said that were stupid. We're smart though. We're smart. No, it's all nonsense. They just they're telling you, basically they're lying about another lie, about an old lie, to cover up old lies. That's what's happening here, as you'll see. Anyway, continuing, it says, at the same time, the very nature of Pentagon operations, an opaque bureaucracy that kept secret programs embedded within secret programs cloaked in cover stories, created fertile ground for the myths to spread. And then it talks about how this paragraph here really upset me here. It says, these findings represent a stunning new twist in the story of America's cultural obsession with UFOs. In the decades after a 1938 radio broadcast of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds spread panic throughout the country, speculation about alien visitors remained largely the province of supermarket tabloids, Hollywood blockbusters, and costumed conferences in Las Vegas. So they try to really, really make it look ugly, really make it look silly again. They're trying to do it again with a paragraph like that. Basically what they're stating is that, it was the War of the Worlds was what really started this. Ever since the War of the Worlds, that's when people start seeing stuff in supermarket tabloids, and that's when they started making all these movies. No, it was in 1947 when everyone starts seeing flying saucers in the sky. Thousands and thousands of reports in 1947 alone. There was thousands and thousands of reports just in the month of June and then in July as well in 1947. And then of course there there was the Roswell crash as well. But that's when it really started. And then by the 1950s, they started making science fiction movies in Hollywood to capitalize on this. But there were serious UFO books being written too, right? By like the late Major Donald Kehoe. It's the people who are serious researchers. That there was serious research that was going on into this subject during the 50s, into the 60s, and every decade ever since it started, there's been serious research. But they don't talk about that. Oh, it's just everything was just in supermarket tabloids. That's where you saw these things, and movies and these weird conferences that they have where people are walking around in alien costumes. They're trying to make it look silly again. It's trying to reinforce the stigma all over again. That's what this article is trying to do. That's what the Pentagon's trying to do by having this article published in the Wall Street Journal. Obviously, somebody contacted the Wall Street Journal and says, "Hey, we need to bite back against these people trying to get the truth out because we need to start making it look silly again." So they send out their Sean Kirkpatrick. He's their lapdog. Obviously, he knows a lot more than he wants to say, and he loves a lie. Obviously, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, you love to lie, buddy. You really have a knack for it too, I gotta say. Anyway, continuing here. It says, more recently, things took an ominous turn when a handful of former Pentagon officials went public with allegations of a government program to exploit extraterrestrial technology and hide it from Americans. Those claims led to the Pentagon's investigation. See, that's what's troubling them. They don't like the idea of these whistleblowers stepping up. They're letting the cat out of the bag, so we got to make it look like, they're just all the information that they got, that was because of stories that we made up on purpose to cover up our secret weapons programs. That's basically what they're trying to say here. Now evidence is emerging that government efforts to propagate UFO mythology date back all the way to the 1950s. Again, of course, I am sure that if they were testing something back in the 1950s or any decade after that, right, and somebody saw it and it was it was something that the United States military was developing secretly, and if somebody thought it was a UFO or a flying saucer from another world, the military wasn't going to say anything about it, right? I get that, right? But that doesn't explain all of this, right? That doesn't explain the alien creature that I saw in my bedroom in 1977, for instance. Anyway, continuing, it says the account is based on interviews with 24 current and former U.S. officials, scientists, and military contractors involved in the inquiry, as well as thousands of pages of documents, recordings, emails, and text messages. And so this is an investigation conducted by Arrow when Kirkpatrick was there, apparently, and this is what they're getting out of it. It says that this is the story now. This is the new version of events. To try it again, it's a way to fool people, to trick people, because most people aren't really paying attention to this, right? And they don't want people to pay attention too much to this. So if you throw a story like this in the Wall Street Journal, there's going to be a whole bunch of idiots out there that are going to read it. Sheeple are going to read it. Oh, so that's all it was. I thought so. Hey, honey, give me some more coffee, please. People are just easily tricked, and government knows this. You could use platforms like the Wall Street Journal. You could easily trick tens of millions of people that really have a casual interest in this subject. That's what this is intended to do, anyhow. Anyway, the article continues. It says, at times, as with the deception around Area 51, military officers spread false documents to create a smokescreen for real secret weapons programs. In other cases, officials allowed UFO myths to take root in the interest of national security. For instance, to prevent the Soviet Union from detecting vulnerabilities in the systems protecting nuclear installations. Stories tended to take on a life of their own, such as the 3-decade journey of a purported piece of space metal that turned out to be nothing of the sort. And one long-running practice was more like a fraternity hazing ritual that spun wildly out of control. Okay, we're going to skip forward to some of this where they start talking about the comments they received from Kirkpatrick. And regarding Kirkpatrick, it says by 2022, he had ascended to chief scientist at the Missile and Space Intelligence Center at the Redstone Arsenal near Huntsville, Alabama. And then he got a phone call a FaceTime call from somebody in the Pentagon. It was a deputy undersecretary from the Pentagon who was putting on a tie as he told Kirkpatrick about a new office Congress ordered the department to set up to examine UAP. And so basically Kirkpatrick took that job. Later on, it says here, the office found that some seemingly inexplicable events weren't so strange after all. In one, a 2015 video appeared to show a spherical object buzzing past a jet fighter at an almost impossible speed. "Oh my gosh, dude," the pilot can be heard saying in the video, laughing. But later, investigators determined there was nothing much less to see. Whatever the object was, the camera angle and relative speed of the jet had made it appear to be going much faster than it was. The office's second mission proved to be more peculiar, to review the historical record going back to 1945, to assess the claims made by dozens of former military employees that Washington operated a secret program to harvest alien technology. Congress granted the office unprecedented access to America's most highly classified programs to allow Kirkpatrick's team to run the stories to the ground. Let me stop there for a minute. That's false. That's false. They did not get everything. They did not get... there was some classified documents that the Arrow does not have access to. We all know that. That's been stated multiple times. Everybody knows that, but the Wall Street Journal apparently doesn't. I guess they only know what Kirkpatrick wanted them to know. I mean, this is terrible reporting, for one thing. This is just awful. This is almost like press relations for the Pentagon. That's what this is. Anyway, continuing. As Kirkpatrick pursued his investigation, he started to uncover a hall of mirrors within the Pentagon, cloaked in official and non-official cover. On one level, the secrecy was understandable. The United States, after all, had been locked in an existential battle with the Soviet Union for decades, each side determined to win the upper hand in the race for ever more exotic weapons. But Kirkpatrick soon discovered that some of the obsession with secrecy verged on the farcical. A former Air Force officer was visibly terrified when he told Kirkpatrick's investigators that he had been briefed on a secret alien project decades earlier, and was warned that if he ever repeated the secret, he would be jailed or executed. The claim would be repeated to investigators by other men who had never spoken of the matter, even with their spouses. It turned out the witnesses had been victims of a bizarre hazing ritual. For decades, certain new commanders of the Air Force's most classified programs, as part of their induction briefings, would be handed a piece of paper with a photo of what looked like a flying saucer. The craft was described as an anti-gravity maneuvering vehicle. So basically, what he's saying here, what they're saying is a program that was like a hazing program to trick people like this and let them go through life like this. Why would they do that? It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, let's continue with the article. It says the officers were told that the program they were joining, dubbed Yankee Blue, was part of an effort to reverse engineer the technology on the craft. They were told never to mention it again. Many never learned it was fake. Kirkpatrick found the practice had begun decades before and appeared to continue still. Now here's the thing. Where's all the evidence for all this? For one thing, I like to see the evidence. Where's the proof of these programs like this? And where's the proof that all these people were tricked? I'd like to see that evidence, for one thing, right? And regardless, even if it existed or not, right? Here's the thing, right? It doesn't matter, right? There's still something here, and there's no question that the government's been covering it up, and there's no question that Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick is a liar. No question about it. But here's the one that really got me really upset was later on when he talked about the 1967 Malmstrom incident. I'll leave the link for this article from Reddit so you can read the entire thing yourself when you get a chance, or if you're interested. But anyway, later on the article talks about that incident in 1967 in Malmstrom. Apparently that was a trick too. Kirkpatrick investigated another mystery that stretched back 60 years. In 1967, Robert Salas, now 84, was an Air Force captain sitting in a walk-in closet-sized bunker manning the controls of 10 nuclear missiles in Montana. He was prepared to launch apocalyptic strikes should Soviet Russia ever attack first, and got a call around 8 p.m. one night from the guard station above. A glowing reddish-orange oval was hovering over the front gate, Salas told Kirkpatrick's investigators. The guards had their rifles drawn, pointed at the oval object appearing to float above the gate. A horn sounded in the bunker, signaling a problem with the control system. All 10 missiles were disabled. Salas soon learned a similar event occurred at other silos nearby. Were they under attack? Salas never got an answer. The next morning, a helicopter was waiting to take Salas back to base. Once there, he was ordered, never discussed the incident. Salas was one of 5 men interviewed by Kirkpatrick's team who witnessed such events in the 1960s and 70s. While sworn to secrecy, the men began sharing their stories in the 90s in books and documentaries. Kirkpatrick's team dug into the story and discovered a terrestrial explanation. The barriers of concrete and steel surrounding America's nuclear missiles were thick enough to give them a chance, if hit first, by a Soviet strike. But scientists at the time feared the intense storm of electromagnetic waves generated by a nuclear detonation might render the hardware needed to launch a counterstrike unusable. To test this vulnerability, the Air Force developed an exotic electromagnetic generator that simulated this pulse of disruptive energy without the need to detonate a nuclear weapon. When activated, this device, placed on a portable platform 60 feet above the facility, would gather power until it glowed, sometimes with a blinding orange light. It would then fire a burst of energy that could resemble lightning. Now you're gonna be thrilled to learn later that what they're talking about here was a device that wasn't even developed in 1967. It was something that wasn't developed until the 1970s. So that right there is a lie. They're just making this up. Kirkpatrick and his team, or just maybe himself, who knows? He's making it up. This is all fabrication. Anyway, continuing, the electromagnetic pulses snaked down cables connected to the bunker where launch commanders like Solace sat, disrupting the guidance systems, disabling the weapons, and haunting the men to this day. But any public leak of the tests at the time would have allowed Russia to know that America's nuclear arsenal could be disabled in a first strike. The witnesses were kept in the dark. To this day, Solace believes he was party to an intergalactic intervention to stop nuclear war, which the government has tried to hide. Well, I don't know what their purposes of being there were, but there were aliens there, and it was aliens that were responsible, or non-human intelligence. That's what was responsible for those missiles getting shut down that day. It had nothing to do with some sort of top secret electromagnetic machine. That's not what this is. That's all fabrication. It's all made up lies, because they don't know what else to. They have that. That's all they want to do now. So that's all. They don't care they don't care about what that it could be debunked easily, right? They don't care. You're just going to say it anyway, because there's going to be a bunch of idiots out there will just eat it up because it's in the Wall Street Journal. That's what this is about. Anyway, continuing here, it says, to this day, Solace believes he was party to an intergalactic intervention to stop nuclear war. He is half right. The experience left the octogenarian deeply skeptical of the United States military and its ability to tell the truth. There is a gigantic cover-up not only by the Air Force, but every other federal agency that has cognizance of this subject, he said in an interview with the Journal. We were never briefed on the activities that were going on. The Air Force shut us out of any information. Concealing the truth from men like Solace and deliberate efforts to target the public with disinformation unleashed within the halls of the Pentagon itself a dangerous force, which would become almost unstoppable as decades passed. The paranoid mythology the U.S. military helped spread now has a hold over a growing number of its own senior officials who count themselves as believers. So basically, the people that experienced these things in the past while working with the government, like Solace, they were tricked, and now all these decades later, they were never told the truth, right, about the electromagnetic machine that they carted out there and didn't tell anybody about, right? Decided to test it on one of the most important silos that we had with nuclear weapons, without telling the people working there about it, right? Why would they do that? See, again, all of this is lies when you really think about it, but there's other reasons why we know this is a lie, and we'll get into that as we go on. Okay, that's all I'm going to read from this article, because it's just so bad. It's so bad. It's hard to believe, actually, that they would put something out there like this. But anyway, there was the New Paradigm Institute issued a statement about this article. It says, and this is from Twitter X, it says, using the Wall Street Journal, the Pentagon is gaslighting the public on UFOs, UAP again. Yes, it is. It's gaslighting us. It's gaslighting everybody. That's what it is doing. That's what this is. Congress must launch a formal investigation into the Pentagon's UFO, UAP disinformation campaign. The Wall Street Journal's recent article, The Pentagon Disinformation That Fueled America's UFO Mythology, which was published on June 6, 2025, presents itself as an expose of the United States government's strategic use of UFO, UAP myths to shield classified weapons programs. But a closer reading reveals something far more calculated and insidious, a continuation of disinformation masquerading as disclosure. The article acknowledges that the Department of Defense seeded UFO stories, also commonly referred to as unidentified anomalous phenomena, to obscure the development of stealth aircraft, but it also aggressively advances the idea that all significant UFO events, including nuclear missile interference and decades of whistleblower claims, can be explained away as mistaken sightings, Cold War pranks, or institutional misunderstanding. This dual tactic, omitting past deception while dismissing credible modern evidence, does not clarify public understanding. It deliberately manipulates it. Before we even stop here, basically what they're doing is they're telling you that they lied in the past, and now they're telling you the truth. Now, how could you trust them? How could you trust anybody that lied to you and let that lie stand for basically 60 years or longer, actually, till all the way back to the 50s, they're saying, right? But let's just take the Malmstrom incident. So they're basically telling you now that in 1967, when that happened, they used this electromagnetic test. That's what all it was. It was their own machinery that caused all of this stuff, right? And they let that lie stand for almost 60 years. Think about that. So they're telling you to believe us now, but yeah, we were lying to you for 60 years. Think about that. Think about how absurd this whole thing is. Anyway, continuing. It says, nowhere is the Pentagon's campaign of disinformation more evident than in the article's treatment of the 1967 Malmstrom Air Force Base incident. I agree with that. Where 10 nuclear missiles went offline during a reported UFO encounter. Former Air Force Captain Robert Salas, who was on duty that night, has consistently maintained that a glowing object was observed above the facility and that missile control systems were inexplicably disabled. The Journal now parrots the Pentagon's newly minted claim that the event was merely the result of a Cold War electromagnetic pulse test. That ridiculous claim collapses under scrutiny. EMP tests are not reversible. A genuine EMP capable of disabling missile launch systems would almost certainly destroy the internal circuitry. According to a study readily available on the U.S. Air Force's Air University website, the EMP effect can result in irreversible damage to a wide range of electrical and electronic equipment, particularly computers and radio or radar receivers. And, of course, the government already knew what the effects of an EMP were at least 5 years before the Malmstrom event. According to an article by the American Physical Society, the 1962 Starfish Prime high-altitude nuclear detonation 250 miles above the Earth's surface emitted an incredibly strong electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, which triggered streetlights blackouts in Hawaii, which was approximately 900 miles away, and damaged at least one-third of the satellites in orbit at the time. Starfish Prime itself underscores the severe and often irreversible impact of EMPs on electronic infrastructure. Given that the missiles at Malmstrom Air Force Base reportedly returned to full functionality shortly after the incident, it is implausible, ridiculous even, that an EMP, known for causing lasting damage, was responsible. This discrepancy suggests that the disruption was temporary and not characteristic of a genuine EMP event. Even more implausible is the idea that the Department of Defense would conduct such a test against live nuclear missile systems during a period of peak Cold War tension. If the DoD wanted to test EMP effects, it had vast remote ranges for that purpose, not an operational ICBM silo network in Montana. And there's even a bigger problem. This wasn't an isolated incident in Montana. In 1994, ABC News' Primetime Live reported on a 1982 event near Bilo-Kairovich in the former Soviet Ukraine. At an intermediate-range ballistic missile base, a UFO reportedly triggered a launch sequence. For 15 harrowing seconds, the missiles were in full countdown before abruptly returning to standby mode. How does the Pentagon explain that instance? How does the Journal account for it? Both ignored the incident because it doesn't fit the carefully crafted narrative. And there's more to this. This is, again, as you can see, it's all a lie. Like, this is a very well put together post here by the New Paradigm incident. So I'll leave links for everything so you can check all this stuff out for yourself. But there's more I want to share here. I also thought this was an interesting post on UFO Reddit from a person who goes by the handle Beta Particle Mail. And he wrote about how this is pretty much opposite of what Kirkpatrick had said previously with regard to the UFO alleged cover-up. He said this is what this guy wrote. He says, Sean Kirkpatrick has completely reversed the claim he has been making since 2023, and it feels like that's not being appreciated enough. He repeatedly told any outlet or interviewer that would listen that reports of a secret UAP program were the result of rumors originating from a small group of true believers that propagated through an institutional game of telephone. Now, in a Wall Street Journal article, he is claiming literally the exact opposite. Now he says the primary blame is actually due to a comically bizarre hazing ritual that lasted decades and involved hundreds and hundreds of people. That utterly contradicts his first explanation, and to top it off, it is now additionally claimed there was an Air Force cover-up to suppress the revelation of this decade-spanning prank once he discovered the awful truth. Again, aside from the laughably absurd premise that hundreds of commanders of the Air Force's most classified programs over generations were pranked into thinking there was a secret UFO program through a prop-utilizing elaborate hazing ritual, this explanation is totally at odds with and completely jettisons his repeated assertions in the press and elsewhere that this was all a result of a small circle of believers spreading fairy tales. They're literally opposites numbers-wise alone, let alone mechanisms and intent. This contradiction is a point of evidence in and of itself, and a significant one. It shouldn't get lost in the cycle. Sean Kirkpatrick is now saying something entirely different. And then also this guy says there were also other fun claims made in the article, such as the explanation for Robert Solis's sighting, which was the Air Force decided to use an electromagnetic pulse weapon on its own nukes as an experiment to shut them off without notifying the missile operators during the girth of the Cold War. But I haven't the strength to pressure that farther currently. Yeah, it's hard to really talk about that one because it's such a lie. The Robert Solis one is such a bogus lie on its face that it's hard to even talk about it, and it's hard to believe that Kirkpatrick and the Pentagon would stoop to such a level. It's just disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Now, this was interesting. Here was a quote from a comment from Mick West on X about the EMP stuff. He says, "The New Paradigm Institute does not understand EMP effects. An EMP pulse can cause a variety of damage depending on intensity. A temporary upset is something that happens, so the missiles returning to functionality is not at all implausible." But what I really liked was Marek von Rennenkamp's response to Mick West here. He says, "Once again, Mick West shows his disingenuous true colors. Instead of acknowledging that the documents cited in the Wall Street Journal piece show that the EMP system was not operational in 1967, or that the scenario described is beyond farcical, he nitpicks over largely irrelevant minutiae." Is that so true? And as you can see here, there was a report that shows us that that system wasn't developed until they didn't have this EMP machine until 1971. So what are they talking about? The system was erected finally at Woodbridge for acceptance testing in January of 1973. So again, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all just a way to take the public's attention away from this, or maybe not. Maybe what I've been saying recently, right? Maybe Sean Kirkpatrick is playing the antagonist here, while everyone else in the UFO community are the protagonist, and he's just saying these lies, giving everyone else the opportunity to easily expose that he is telling lies, and all of it is theater. So the UFO subject is constantly in the news all the time. Maybe that's what's going on, because the lies that he's telling and that he continues to tell are obvious lies, and he's always outed every single time. Always. It never works out for him. So why does he keep doing it? It doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, I thought this was interesting. Brandon Fugel, who is the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, he wrote, he says, "That article is part of an ongoing disinformation campaign, simply trying to manage and manipulate the public. Strange activity at Skinwalker Ranch has been documented back to at least the 1930s, with law enforcement going on record regarding events in the 1980s. Oh, yes, he is so right. And Brandon Fugel, of all people, he has the best experience with Sean Kirkpatrick lies. I mean, here's this was from 12 months ago. It was in May of 2024 when all of that story exploded, which it showed that where Kirkpatrick was saying, he didn't know anything about Skinwalker Ranch. He was never briefed on Skinwalker Ranch. He never met Brandon Fugel. Well, that all got exposed spectacularly, and here was a segment from a podcast I did on that a year ago. It was actually from May 13th, 2024. Check this out. Actually, what happened was Brandon Fugel actually posted a picture on Twitter, on May 9th. He says, on April 19th, 2018, my team from Skinwalker Ranch was asked to provide a confidential briefing in Washington, D.C. to the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and United States Armed Services Committee. Sean Kirkpatrick was at the head of the table. It lasted 2.5 hours. And of course, he had a picture here showing people sitting in this fancy conference room in the Pentagon, and there's Sean Kirkpatrick sitting at the head of the table. And when in Greenstreet's piece, when he was talking with Brandon Fugel, and this is what Fugel said. He says, "Here's the interesting thing: as we commenced the presentation, I was interrupted by a gentleman at the head of the table, and he said, 'Wait, before we proceed any further, I want to establish an understanding. All the gentlemen here, Mr. Fugel, that you're presenting to are all very well aware of the reality of UFO phenomena. So please dispense with any part of your presentation that would seek to convince us of the reality, because we already know.'" Now, Fugel didn't state this during the interview, but actually Greenstreet said he found out that it was actually Sean Kirkpatrick that's made that statement, that told Fugel this. So anyway, so he gets, after Fugel posts that picture and says, yeah, he actually met with Kirkpatrick. Kirkpatrick said before he doesn't know who Fugel is, never heard of him, basically, But so Greenstreet calls Kirkpatrick up to have him clarify. "I thought you didn't know Brandon Fugel. You never had any meetings with him. Here, there's a picture of you sitting at a table in Washington having a discussion, sitting there during a PowerPoint presentation." So Greenstreet's forced to put up an update, and he says, "Brandon Fugel has provided photos of a purported 2018 Skinwalker Ranch briefing in Washington, D.C. that seems to show Sean Kirkpatrick in attendance. Not seems to show, Stephen. Shows Sean Kirkpatrick in attendance. Not seems, shows." Anyway, Kirkpatrick admitted to me that he attended a briefing and that Hal Puthoff and Kit Green were there, as shown in this photo. But he says he doesn't remember Skinwalker Ranch ever being mentioned, and that he doesn't recall ever meeting Fugel, and that he thinks it was in 2017 instead of 2018. So yet another weird twist in all of this. Thank you, Mr. Fugel, for the photo. He said, also added in there, should note that both the Department of Defense and the Senate Armed Services Committee were both very, very sketchy with me about this briefing. Unfortunately, he had to provide another update because Fugel provided more information. So update number 2 from Mr. Greenstreet. He says, "I went through the Skinwalker Ranch PowerPoint PDF that Fugel sent me, and the slide in the briefing photo that above appears to be this information from the presentation. So it does seem Kirkpatrick sat 12 feet from a Skinwalker Ranch presentation, but doesn't remember it being about Skinwalker Ranch." So that's what Kirkpatrick wants you to believe, that he totally, completely forgets that. He must have forgot. Oh, I must have forgot. No, you lied. You never forgot. You lied. You just didn't know you had your picture taken that day. That's what it is. And then he also, even further corroboration here to the meeting and when it happened, Fugel has also provided, this is Greenstreet's third update, Fugel has also provided me with the original source photo, and the metadata indeed shows creation date of 4/19/2018. So he actually, Kirkpatrick was saying he didn't know when it was, and he never thought he met him. He thought it might have been 2017. Well, here we have the proof that shows exactly when this picture was taken. It was on April 19th, 2018. So there's no doubt that he was telling the truth, Fugel was, and that Kirkpatrick is lying. But there's more. Of course there's more. Okay, here was Twitter user Tim McMillan asked Brandon Fugel this question. He says, just to add to the intrigue surrounding all of this, Brandon Fugel, can you confirm that all your prepared presentation materials went missing from your hotel room the night before, forcing you to use a backup set for the briefing? And Fugel responded saying, confirmed, the flash drive containing the briefing was stolen from my room, which was the presidential suite of the Grand Hyatt, Washington, D.C., the morning of the briefing, while locked and attending a quick meeting at my Collier's International D.C. office located nearby. So not only when he attended this meeting, somebody broke into his hotel room and stole the flash drive that had his presentation on it, where the PDF is that we see later on. But luckily, he had an extra copy. He says, I reported the situation to hotel security and front desk. Fortunately, and to my surprise and relief, my principal investigator and scientist, Eric Bard, had saved a copy to his laptop the night before. The briefing was able to proceed. And then Rob Sheridan asked, quick one, Brandon, was there an agenda sent out ahead to all attendees? And when did all attendees receive an invite to the presentation? Was it made clear to all that Skinwalker Ranch was the scope of the debrief? Brandon Fugel responded. He says, yes, it was crystal clear. The sole purpose of the briefing was to provide an update regarding the research activities and data gathered under my ownership of Skinwalker Ranch. There was obviously advance notice and an agenda circulated. And then later on, this was interesting. Rob Sheridan wrote later on, he says this, he says, just to be clear to all the debunkers, there was and can't be any room for error, misunderstanding, or recollection going into, sitting in on, and leaving the Skinwalker Ranch brief regarding location, scope, time, date, and attendees. It's crystal clear. Sean Kirkpatrick knew exactly the scope of the brief prior to attending and the attending list, meaning he had to have it planned in his calendar in advance. He is also quoted in the meeting informing all attendees when he addresses Brandon that he was well aware of UAP. In conclusion, Sean Kirkpatrick received prior notice and the agenda with the scope of the presentation, listed attendees, date of when and where it was going to be held. Based on his statement below in comparison to the accommodations and communications he received in advance of said meeting, Sean Kirkpatrick is a liar. Enough said. And then he has one of the quotes here from Sean Kirkpatrick. I did not know it was about Skinwalker Ranch until later. I don't recall it being referenced by that name during the briefing. And then we have Lou Elizondo chiming in. He writes, now that we have further evidence of former Arrow directors lying to the public, how long will it take to make the connection to the coordinated lies between he and the Pentagon's Public Affairs Office? I suspect some in the press are already on the case. Thank you, Mr. Fugel, for calling out yet another untruth. Hey, Pentagon, the American taxpayer deserves better. So we have caught Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick in a lie, and what this does, it makes everything that he's been talking about null and void. The Arrow report, all of his assertions that there's this cult in the Pentagon, everything. You can't believe a word he said. He's part of the control group, as I talked about in a recent podcast. I mean, he's working at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee as the top dog down there, which we all know is suspected of being part of this whole thing. But anyway, it was interesting. You had the damage control group come out. Of course, Mick West, the biggest debunker of our age. In responding to, somebody posted this. This was a user on Twitter named Jay. He says, of everyone present at this briefing, Kirkpatrick has the biggest stack of files in front of him. Lots of laughs. For someone not into UFOs, he certainly came prepared. And if you look at the picture, there's, Kirkpatrick has this big stack of papers on there. But what does that matter? It's not a big deal. But Mick West, he wants to show us the shiny object, right? That's what they like to do. He writes this. I don't think that's a stack of files in front of Kirkpatrick. It's a notepad, like you'd typically get in a meeting. They each have one. He's not taking notes and he's not looking at the presentation. He's looking at the camera like, why are you filming? So I wrote back to him. I said this. I've seen some attempts at damage control in my life, but this here has to go down as one of the most obvious and pathetic. You really do believe your flock is a bunch of drooling, wide-eyed morons who'll believe anything you say. And then Mick West responded to me. He says, you think it's a stack of documents? And I wrote back to him. I said, I don't care if it's a stack of pancakes. The guy lied. So basically, what they try to do is they try to take your attention off the fact that the guy's a big liar, and let's worry about what's in front of him. What's that stack of papers? Oh, it's just notebooks. See, nothing's going on there. Shiny objects. So there you go. So what's been happening here? I mean, a year has passed since that lie was exposed, and here we are with more lies he's telling. And so you have to ask yourself, I mean, why would you keep telling lies like this? And why would, you see what Mick West did there? Like, he says stuff that could be easily attacked and exposed for what it is. I mean, so why are they doing this? Is it possible that this is all theater, all of it? I mean, all these people that are pretending that are telling us, oh yeah, was just tricks. There's all nonsense. We're just testing out our own military aircraft, and if people thought they were UFOs from another world, well, so be. We weren't going to tell them, right? And then it's the same went with all of our military personnel over the years. Yeah, and we actually in some cases we told them lies for the heck of it and just never told them the truth after that. I don't believe any of that, right? Nobody should believe any of that. And obviously you could see how explanation for the Malmstrom incident is absolutely absurd, right? It doesn't work. That's not what they saw there. They saw a big craft that showed up. There were other witnesses that were up above. Solace was down below, inside the silo, right? There was other people up above, guards up above that have talked about what they saw. Big giant UFO hovering up there. That's what caused the power to go out, and then it flew away. It was no sort of a device that they decided to cart up there and not tell everybody working there, hey, we're going to do an electromagnetic test. We'll let you know, let us know if anything goes wrong. No, nothing like that happened. If they would have been doing that, they would have told them that. So all of this is just nonsense. But then again, you have to ask yourself your questions like, why are they telling these blatant lies that could be easily revealed as lies? I don't understand, but they're doing it. They don't care. And that makes me wonder, I guess maybe this is what it is, what I've been saying. It's all theater, right? All of it. And they're just, yeah, we'll tell this lie and you could attack us, and then we'll say something back and then you could attack us again, as long as we keep UFOs in the press, because that's what it seems like to me. It could be. Or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe what I was saying earlier is what's really happening here is that, we have more whistleblowers now. We have Matthew Brown. Well, we got to do something about this. Okay, send Kirkpatrick to the Wall Street Journal. Let's put out another a lie. We'll say to the Malmstrom. We'll say the 1967 Malmstrom incident. That was us testing our electromagnetic equipment. It's this new device that we constructed. That's all it was. Just tell them that. Anything. Doesn't matter, because there's going to be a bunch of idiots out there that will just believe every word we say. Because we're the official, we're the government. These other people are just investigators. They don't know anything. See, that's how it is. Just there's a lot of dummies running around this country. There's no question about it. They believe anything. Anybody, they'll believe anything that, as if it's an official from the United States Air Force telling them that the UFOs and aliens and all that stuff is fake. There's people that will listen to that and believe it 100% and go on with their merry old way. Go on with their merry old lives. That's what will happen. Anyway, also I want to talk about Christopher Mellon. He's in the news again. He's the former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence under Presidents Clinton and Bush. And he said recently that the world is not ready for the truth. Here's an article from Cyber News. Christopher Mellon, the world is not ready for the truth about UFOs. At a recent Saul Foundation event, former top U.S. intelligence official Christopher Mellon made a chilling claim. The world is not ready for what the disclosure will reveal. Mellon has played a central role in modern UAP disclosure and isn't one for exaggerating. In a growing arena of extraterrestrial interest, his warning isn't just dramatic. It may signal a shift from advocacy to urgency. And then it talks about who he is. But anyway, he says Mellon challenges the idea that visitors must be biological. He proposes that advanced civilizations may send autonomous, self-replicating machines via non-Newman probes capable of enduring the vast timescales of interstellar travel. They may not be they at all. They may be AI explorers sent across vast stretches of space and time. As loopy as that may first appear on the page, maybe it all ties in somehow. Could AI be an entity that wasn't actually developed by humans? Then there's the UAP. While never claiming certainty, Mellon emphasizes that the magnitude of just one officially verified discovery of non-human technology would be staggering. Well, let me just stop here for a minute. I know the world isn't ready, right? And I know a lot of these people don't think the world is ready. Obviously, the Pentagon's not ready to tell the truth, obviously, right? They don't want to talk about it. They're still lying about it. But the fact of the matter is it's already too late. There's evidence out there that now shows that we're not alone. And it's time for these people to just tell the truth already. I mean, just stop lying. Maybe they'll talk about it at all then. Just forget about it, I mean, the Pentagon should just say nothing. Nothing. Instead of lying, just say nothing. Like when someone says, yeah, you're lying about UFOs, don't say no, we're not. Just don't say anything, because I'm sick of hearing your lies. I mean, you got a letter, it was almost, 11 months ago, over 11 months ago now. I sent an email letter to the Pentagon and to the Department of Energy revealing that we have evidence in the public domain now that shows there's no question that there's an NHI presence on this planet. I never received a response. Actually, more recently, I sent a letter to my local representative, and I was told that it was sent off to Washington, but I haven't heard anything. That's been at least, 2 or 3 weeks ago now. They have the proof. They know that there's something here. They're just lying to you. This is again, I don't know what's going on. That's why I keep saying that. Is there some sort of theater? Is this some sort of like a Shakespeare play or something? and a lot of people, we don't realize it. A lot of people in the community who are very interested in this subject just don't realize that these people are just actors. Some of them bad actors. Basically, one tells a lie, and then somebody else tells the truth, and then the government side tells more lies. And then, I mean, is this the way to keep it in the news all the time? Have Sean Kirkpatrick come out and make unbelievably absurd statements like what he's done in this Wall Street Journal article talking about the 1967 Malmstrom incident, saying that, oh yeah, it was this electromagnetic test that we were doing there. Those guys that were there that thought they saw a UFO, we just never told them, until now. Think about that. So basically they're telling you, yeah, we've been lying to you for decades and decades, and now we're going to suddenly tell you the truth. But the truth isn't the truth. It's just another lie on top of another lie. It's a lie to explain away the other lie. It's the same thing that they did with Roswell. And here's, I want to close it out with this. I just want to point out that, there were a lot of different people in Roswell. And I've talked about this before, different military officials who had stepped to the forefront, and they, are all of those guys lying? Was Sergeant Errol Fulford, was he lying? He was stationed in Roswell in 1947. He told investigators he was part of a detail that was driven to the debris field on the Foster Ranch where Mac Brazel found UFO records. Fulford told researchers Donald Schmidt and Thomas Carey that he and a team of servicemen were handed burlap bags and told to pick up all debris on a section of ground measuring hundreds of yards. Fulford also said that it had appeared that the area had already been policed and scoured, as there were tire tracks everywhere. There wasn't much debris remaining, but Fulford did describe finding a small piece of memory metal. When they completed picking up the debris, the servicemen handed in their burlap bags, were searched thoroughly upon completion of the task, and then told not to say anything about the incident or be court-martialed. I mean, was Jesse Marcel Sr., the one who started the ball rolling as far as the Roswell cover-up is concerned in 1978, was he lying when he came forward finally and said that there was a cover-up and that whatever crashed in Roswell in 1947 was not man-made? Was he lying? He was the top intelligence guy in Roswell at that time, where the only place in the world where they had atomic bombs. He was the top intelligence guy there, and he said that had nothing to do with balloons or anything like that. There was something that crashed there. Was he lying? All these different people, that some of them that signed deathbed confessions, like the information officer Walter Haut. Was he lying? He actually signed a confession that was released after he died. Not only did he see the wreckage, not only did he know that there was a cover-up, that he was part of it, that he was ordered to be part of it, he also saw the bodies. Was he lying? Was Private Frank Cassidy, an MP in Roswell in 1947, he told his wife on his deathbed in 1976 that he guarded Hangar 3 in Roswell and saw alien bodies. Was he lying? Did he tell his life? He just made up that lie right before he died in 1976. How about Corporal Robert Lyda on his deathbed in 1995 told his wife that he served as a guard at Hangar 3 in Roswell in 1947 and saw wreckage and alien bodies. So you have two different guys who gave deathbed confessions about guarding aliens in a hangar in Roswell in 1947. Were they both lying? How about Sergeant Homer Rowlett Jr. told his son Larry and daughter Carlene on separate occasions while he was on his deathbed in 1988 that he was part of the cleanup detail at the impact site, saw the crashed craft and handled the memory metal, and also saw 3 alien creatures with big heads, and that one of them was still alive. Was he lying? How about George Wilcox? He was the sheriff in Roswell at the time. He told his wife at Inez that one of the aliens had survived the crash. Was he lying? Did he tell his wife a lie? Sergeant Melvin Brown on his deathbed in 1986, he told his family members, and a lot of these people, you could look this up. It's in books. Some of it's on video. You could watch some of this stuff on video if you don't believe me. Sergeant Melvin Brown on his deathbed in 1986 told his family members that he and another soldier were ordered to stand guard by an ambulance near the crash site in 1947 and to not look under a canvas tarp that was covering something in the rear of the vehicle. Brown said he looked under the tarp when the chance arose and saw small alien bodies that had big heads and slanted eyes. Was he lying? Private Eli Benjamin, what about this guy? Private Eli Benjamin, he told researchers Schmidt and Carey that in July 1947 he was ordered to move alien bodies on gurneys from Hangar 3 into trucks bound for the Air Base Hospital. One of the bodies on a gurney appeared to be moving, he said. When getting loaded onto a truck, a sheet on one of the gurneys slipped, allowing Benjamin to see that it was an alien body with a big head. He had nightmares about this incident for the rest of his life. Was he telling lies? Did he make that story up? I mean, all these people that were worked for the military back in 1947, that were servicemen, and then years later they all talk about these experiences. Were all of them lying? All of them? You're going to tell me all of them were lying? How about this one? Army Air Force pilot Pappy Henderson said he flew the bodies from Roswell to Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio in 1947. He never mentioned the event to his wife until 1982 when he saw a report about the Roswell UFO crash featured on the front page of a newspaper on a stand. Henderson told his wife, Sappho, that he wanted to tell her the story for years and believed that. Now that it had been reported in newspapers, it was finally okay to talk about it. Before he passed away, Pappy Henderson said the alien creatures reminded him of the cartoon character Casper the Friendly Ghost. Did that guy make up that story to his wife in 1982? I mean, there's actually, I believe there's at least 2 separate interviews with Sappho Henderson where she talks about this incident. And if you watch those videos, you will see that this woman was telling a truthful story. She was relating a truthful story that was related to her by her husband, Pappy, who by this point had passed away. But he told her in 1982 when he saw it on a newsstand, oh, I guess it's okay to talk about it. I was there. I actually had them on the plane. So are all these people lying? And this is just a little tip of the iceberg here. You should check out this book if you ever get a chance. From Leonard Stringfield, UFO Crash Retrievals. It's an expensive book. I mean, I think last I saw it, it was like in the $90 range. I think I had to pay $100 for when I bought it. But this guy investigated, met with different people involved in UFOs crash retrievals, and he talked with them and wrote these reports from 1978 to 1994. I mean, there was a lot of different incidents that are covered in this book. I mean, are all of these people that talked to Leonard Stringfield over the decades, are all of them lying? You know who's lying. We all know who's lying. All right, it's the same people that want us to believe that the alien bodies that people saw in 1947 in Roswell or near Roswell, they want us. Those people wanted us to believe that what they really saw were dummies that were dropped from the sky from 1953 to 1959. That's the same. This is the same kind of ridiculous lies, but yet a mainstream news outlet like the Wall Street Journal publishes tripe like this as if it's real. You think they would have contacted more people to get other comments? No, but that wouldn't serve the purpose of what they needed to do here. The Pentagon wanted to put this story out, so they contacted their people at the Wall Street Journal, and they sent over Kirkpatrick to tell them some more lies. Tell them that story we told you about Malmstrom. Maybe they'll believe that one. Something to that effect, right? Obviously, it's made up. It's obviously horseshit, right? There's no question about it. But yet they keep barfing out these lies on the American public for some reason. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. But the bottom line is, it really doesn't matter. These idiots, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know if they're if this is a theater, if this is all theater, like I've been suggesting it might be. I don't know. I can't say that with certainty. Obviously, I just can't believe that people would just be telling these kind of blatant lies. That's why I say that. But if it is theater, well, it makes sense then. You know, maybe the public ain't ready right now, like Mellon says. But then again, if Mellon's saying that, I mean, he's one of the people that started this back in 2017. He's one of the people that said that they wanted disclosure. Now he's saying, no, the public's not ready for it. Okay, well, what is it? Do you want disclosure or don't you? I don't know. And then you have Sean Kirkpatrick and the Pentagon telling us lies. I mean, what's going on here? Is it all theater? I would like to know the answer to that question. I don't know. Or are they just telling blatant lies because they don't know what else to do? Is that how inept the people are? That are behind the cover-up, that this is how they're going to work it. They think they're going to get away with this. I don't know. It's really funny, everything that's happening right now. It really is. It's been funny. It's been funny for a long time. It's also very funny that people are still ignoring the absolute proof that's been tossed out into the public arena. People still want to ignore that. That's okay, too. It's not over yet, folks. Believe me, that's not over yet. Anyway, I just want to say this. I'm going to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.